Ohio Congressman, House Judiciary Committee ranking member, and the author of Do What You Said You Would Do. Jim Jordan is here. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. Let me get your reaction first to President Trump a few moments ago. Then I want to dive into the State of the Union last night.
Yeah. Well, I mean, President Trump's exactly right on the oil situation. I mean, look, even if Joe Biden wanted to do the right thing, his party won't let him. They actually, Maria, they want $8 gas. I mean, when I was in a hearing a few months ago where Ro Khanna, a Democrat member from California, we had the oil executives from each of the big companies, and he went down the line and said to each one, will you pledge to decrease production? And I'm like, do you guys want $8 gas? And the sad truth is they do. They want to destroy the oil and gas industry. So President Trump is right. And I think the big takeaway the American people have is what a contrast between the strong leadership of President Trump versus the weak leadership of Joe Biden. And unfortunately, we're seeing that play out in a real way, in a terrible way in Ukraine as we speak.
Well, in President Trump's 2018 State of the Union, he said the State of the Union is strong because our people are strong. Last night, Biden 2022 State of the Union says the State of the Union is strong because you, the American people, are strong. Very similar. Your thoughts on Biden's take on the State of the Union today?
Well, the American people are strong, and the American people understand that we don't have strong leadership in the White House. I mean, there's a reason that 63% of the country actually thinks our nation is on the wrong track. My guess is after last night's speech, that number's even higher. I mean, there were elements of the speech that made no sense. When he said it's time to secure our border, I thought, are you kidding me? For a year, you have intentionally not secured the border, allowed 2 million people to illegally enter our country, got rid of the Remain in Mexico policy, stopped building the wall. I mean, that's what Joe Biden did. Now he says we need to secure. Now he says we need to fund the police after spending 2 years of their party in defunding the police, not having bail, not prosecuting bad guys. I mean, and so many elements of this thing just didn't make sense to the country. Again, I think it's just a reflection of the poor leadership of unfortunately, and I look, Maria, we get no satisfaction in saying this. It's a sad situation. Our country deserves so much better, but it's the truth. Joe Biden, we went from a secure border to chaos. We went from energy independence to the situation we have now. We went from safe streets to record crime, and we went from stable prices to 40-year high inflation. That's what the Biden administration has given us in just 13 months.
Well, it's interesting to say last night he wants to secure the border, but then do nothing about it. My question is, are heads going to roll? Do you think that suggests that Alejandro Mayorkas steps down soon? Does he get left holding the bag? And what about the inflation story? Will Janet Yellen get pushed out because of that, out of the Treasury Secretary position? What are you hearing?
Well, I mean, look, Mr. Mayorkas, he's yet to even come in front of the Judiciary Committee for a hearing. I've never seen that happen in all the time I've been in Congress. You always have the head of Homeland Security come in front of the committee with jurisdiction on immigration policy, the Judiciary Committee. You always have that happen. He hasn't even been there. So, yeah, will Biden make a change? I don't know. My guess is probably not. Because, again, the left likes all these crazy policies. They want the bad energy policy. They want the bad border security policy. They like actually not having any bail and not prosecuting bad guys. I mean, they like those things. So I don't know that he'll make any changes. My guess is he won't. They're committed to the left controls the party, and Joe Biden is run by the left.
I want to ask you about China because we were talking to Congressman Michael Waltz earlier in the show, and he was outraged, as was I, that the Biden administration has canceled the China initiative. This is a Trump-era policy where the DOJ was investigating the intellectual property theft and the surveillance of America. Your thoughts on whether or not this will be investigated? Michael Waltz told me that he's going to work with the Judiciary Committee in investigating this. Are you planning a probe?
Yeah, I mean, look, no one stood up to China and Russia more than first president to really stand up to him like President Trump did. It doesn't surprise me that Biden's got a different plan here. There are so many things we need to investigate. If, in fact, the American people put us back in power, we need to do the oversight and the investigation so that the American people get the truth on what the DOJ is doing to parents, the truth on how Dr. Fauci and CDC misled us on so many things over the last year, the truth on the China issue, the truth on what's happening on the border. All those investigations need to happen. If the country puts us back in charge, we will do those investigations in the Judiciary Committee and a host of other committees in the United States Congress.
Well, look, we know that the CCP is watching the events in Ukraine, China and Taiwan watching the Russian war on Ukraine. Many believe Xi Jinping is going to be emboldened by the Biden administration's handling of the crisis. Here's what President Trump just told me a few minutes ago about that. Watch this. President Trump, do you expect China to invade Taiwan sooner rather than later?
I do, because they're seeing how stupid the United States is run. They're seeing that our leaders are incompetent, and of course they're going to do it. This is their time.
Congressman, your reaction?
Well, I think, unfortunately, our enemies were emboldened last year. I mean, remember the first meeting where Secretary Blinken is in Anchorage meeting with his Chinese counterpart, and the individual from China just dressed down Secretary Blinken, talked about how bad they criticized the country, called us all kinds of names, and Secretary Blinken just took it. Maria, that would not happen to Mike Pompeo in a President Trump administration. It would not happen. And if they tried, Secretary Pompeo would have given it back to him, or maybe more likely he'd have got up and flipped the table over and walked out of the room. But you don't get that from the Biden administration, so that's the problem. When you send that message more than a year ago, and then that's followed up by what was the debacle, the exit from Afghanistan, that's why we are where we are. You have to project strength like President Trump did. That's the main problem here. And again, I think the country sees it as evidenced by the fact that 63% of our fellow citizens think we're on the wrong track. That says it all. And there was nothing in that speech last night from Joe Biden that I think changes any of that, which is maybe the most sad thing of all.
Which is why the Wall Street Journal editorial board this morning says that Biden missed the moment in his State of the Union for failing to pivot to the middle, failing to acknowledge his bad policies have created many of these disasters. Here is President Biden on his accomplishments last night. Watch this. Got to get your assessment of the State of the Union.
Lots of jobs. In fact, our economy created over 6.5 million new jobs just last year. More jobs in 1 year than ever before in the history of the United States of America.
Of course, the February jobs report comes out tomorrow morning. 400,000 jobs expected to be added to the economy. But, Congressman, President Biden does not admit that part of the reason jobs came back was people went back to work after the pandemic. Your thoughts?
And the country sees that. The country understands the facts here. What the country also understands is the Democrats' attack on our First Amendment liberties, the Democrats' attack on telling people, if you don't get this vaccine, you're not going to be able to go to work. We're going to fire you from jobs. They remember the mandate that Biden imposed, that the Supreme Court struck down. So they remember all those things as well. But, yeah, the Americans have common sense. They get the facts. They get the full picture. He can say it however he wants. But, again, I come back to there's a reason. There's a reason that 6 in 10 Americans think we're on the wrong track, and it's because we are, and it needs to change. Unfortunately, I don't think Joe Biden will change because the left now controls the Democrat Party, and the left is committed to all the stupid ideas that put us in the situation we now find ourselves.
Can he recover from these rock bottom poll numbers, Congressman? Or what does this mean for 2024?
Well, I hope that, you never want to be overconfident, but I'm confident we're going to be able to win back the House and the Senate in the midterm elections. And then we're going to pass things. Joe Biden won't sign them because, again, the left won't let him. We're going to pass some good bills. He won't sign them, but we will help frame up the 2024 race when I think President Trump is going to run and I think he is going to win. And then in 2025, we can really begin to do the things that the American people want us to do that are good for America, that put America first. That's how American politics works, and that's the the path we have to go down. But I think that's how it's going to play out.
All right. We'll be watching all of that. Congressman, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks very much, sir.
You bet. Thank you.